Maybe a minute or two longer. We've got a few more people that are coming in. So I'll just tell you a little bit of housekeeping. If you picked up your handouts before you came in, that's great. If you didn't pick them up afterward, that's what I'm calling your homework. It's my belief that if you want to really strengthen your intuitive sense, you have to practice. So I've got so all the activities that we will go through today are on that sheet. So you can practice between now and I believe it's February 23rd. The other thing is if you like what I'm talking about and would like to be on my mailing list, I have got sheets, I've got sign-up sheets right at the end, at the back of the room. So feel free to sign up for that. All right. If I can have you all just finish chewing that last bit. And I'd like for you to close your eyes. You can eat after we're done with this. So you just close your eyes and focus on your breathing. Not to shift your breathing, but just to be aware of it. What I'd like you to do is to just inhale into the center of your being. Just continue to breathe, not to shift your breath, but just to breathe. I'd like for you to listen to your body, see what you notice. Key into your mind. Is that internal monologue saying anything to you? Just notice. You're going to be an objective observer. And then as you inhale, notice that your breath is turning a specific color. Any color that you want, any color that you just comes to you. And as this color floods your being, notice how you feel. What I'm going to invite you to do is just gradually come back. You can open your eyes again and make a note of the color that you saw. So today we're going to talk about inner wisdom, intuitive presence, intuitive awareness. It's really that little voice inside of us that you probably all have heard at one point or another. We can use our inner wisdom either unconsciously or we can use it with great awareness. And so today what I want to do is talk a little bit about what are things that you can do to increase your ability to hear that inner voice. So, for example, what I had you do was pick up a color. You automatically thought of a color. That's actually called chromotherapy. And what chromotherapy does, it uses the vibration of color to shift how you feel. And so we'll go over those in just a bit. But today we're going to talk about how we learn to access our intuition, how it can be a guiding force to respond to the world around us, and really how the more we cultivate our intuitive awareness, the more that we're able to use it. And so how can we recognize when our intuitive sense is working? How can we decipher the messages that we're being given? And then how can we respond to it? Let's look at those colors now. So if you look, I just had the colors that are on the spectrum: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. So what I'd like for you to do is to take a moment and see as close as you can get. If you got the color teal, ask yourself, was it more green or more blue? But take a look at these colors and ask yourself, what in the meaning of each of those colors did I need? So if you were red, did you feel the need to be safe? Are you celebrating something? Are you feeling energized, or was your energy a little depleted, so the red made you feel a little more energized? Orange is balance and enthusiasm, it's playfulness. It's also about creation. Yellow is about courage, happiness, joy, and hope. Green is about love and renewal, generosity and abundance. Blue is peace and harmony and tranquility. Indigo is clarity and perception. And violet is about all these things but wisdom. so one of the things that I found that later on, if you jot that down on your piece of paper, really sit with that. And by sit with that, I think, really see it, what did that color mean to me? So I often say to people is even if you take a look at the color that you're wearing today, what do you need and what are you saying to the world? And that's part of what your inner wisdom is about. Now, Einstein says there are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle, and the other is as though everything is a miracle. And when we're really open to our intuitive presence, that inner wisdom, we really discover the miracle is the extraordinary. So you really begin to see those things that are going to help you, that are going to guide you to where you need to be. It's we discover what we need to learn through our inner presence. How many of you speak a second language? So learning to decipher your intuition is like speaking a second language. What you're going to do is as you go through the exercises, the practices that I left on the sheets up just at the other outside the hallway, those are going to help you practice to learn the language of your intuition. Some of it is going to be pretty easy. How many of you have ever been driving down the street, or has anybody ever been driving down the street, and you go the same way to work every day? And this little voice inside your head says, don't take the highway today, take a surface street. Has anyone ever had that happen? Who listens to it? That's listening to your intuition. I tell people the one time that I did not listen, I got into a car accident. So now I have no clue why I listen sometimes, I just listen. So you're already listening to your intuitive presence. You're already using that intuitive muscle. There's a physicist whose name is Barbara Ann Brennan, who says that there's no such thing as a sixth sense. When I was growing up, that was the cool thing, that ESP, that extrasensory perception, was that sixth sense that only certain people had. Well, Barbara Ann Brennan calls it HSP, which is high sense perception. So basically what we do with our intuition is we use all of our senses, our 5 primary senses, and we move into hyper-awareness so that we can notice things. And the other thing is it's more than just noticing, it's identifying and then beginning to decipher whatever we're picking up. So really, today's goal, and then in February is the goal for you to begin to really deepen your ability to move into high sense perception and to begin to listen to your inner wisdom. Now, how are we going to do that? One of the things that we're going to do is really by increasing our emotional intelligence. So the more aware we are of ourselves and our emotions, the better equipped we are to respond to the world. And so I talk about we can either respond to the world using our intuitive sense, or we can react to the world. Sometimes we get really stuck in our emotions, and so we're reacting out of anger, or we're reacting out of frustration, or we're reacting out of anxiety. And so when we move into hyper-awareness, what we do is we really begin to respond. We say, okay, you know what, I'm feeling really anxious today, so what does that mean that I need to do? It means I need to slow down and be more aware. Sometimes it means before I get into the car, I always check to see where I am. Because chances are if I'm anxious and I can calm that down, then I'm going to be more aware of what's going on in the world and the other drivers around me. Now we're going to engage the 4 aspects of ourself. And I'm sure you've heard of mind, body, and spirit. I add a 4th one to that. I'm adding heart. And heart is our emotions. And so today we're going to talk about, or actually we'll talk about part of it today and part of it in February. We're going to talk about mind, body, heart, and instead of calling it spirit, I'm going to call it spark, which is what is your purpose. And then we're going to look at bridging the rational and emotional minds. And what I will say to you is just because you're logical doesn't mean you can't access your intuition. and just because your logical mind is an integral part of your ability to process your intuition. So 20 years ago when I started doing this work, I had people say to me, well, you're too logical, Vanessa, you're never going to be able to be intuitive. That's not true. And I mean, if you look at neuroscience, you need to be working with both sides of your brain to really strengthen whatever you do. Both logic and creativity increase your neuroplasticity. And so today we're going to talk about too is how to bridging the two create a pathway for our intuition to flow. And then it's pretty amazing because then you can figure out, why do I think the way I think? So the practices that I will encourage you to engage in are really mindfulness, our contemplative practices, those things that really focus your attention on the awareness of the world around you and looking more than just superficially. So it's when you're having a conversation with somebody that you're really intentionally talking with them instead of being somewhere else, so that your intuition rises up and helps you pick out those clues. We're going to do some exercises with high sense perception. We're also going to engage in what I call full body listening. And in that, what I'm going to ask you to do is use all 5 of your senses to listen. So, has anybody here ever listened with their nose that you know of? We listen with all 5 of our senses. How many of you have ever said, something doesn't smell right? You were listening with your nose intuitively. You just weren't asking the question. How many of you have ever said, that leaves a bad taste in my mouth? You were listening with your intuition. And those are cues. What happens is when you say, that leaves a bad taste in my mouth, that asks you to take a step back and say, what is it about that situation? What is my intuition, my intuitive presence telling me about that situation? We also listen with our ears, we listen with our eyes, and we listen a lot with our sense of touch. And sometimes that means, has anyone here ever had a situation where they kind of felt fuzzy around another person? Or felt like their emotions just died? Or got really happy? That's also your intuitive presence, giving you some really good clues. And that's the time to say, we've got to stop and pay attention to what our 5 senses are telling us. We're also going to practice anchoring into the moment. And basically what anchoring into the moment does, it just grounds us in the here and now. It makes us more aware. It's a fairly simple practice that you can go through, and there's one on the handouts up there. So what it is to realize that anyone can access their inner wisdom. I've met people before that were born with the ability that do awesome things, but I've also met people that all they have to do is become more aware of what their 5 senses are telling them, and they can be really great at picking up their intuitive cues and then responding to them. So these urges really are what I call whispers. And so you might be thinking, well, what happens if I don't pick up a whisper? Sometimes those whispers become shouts. Our intuition really does a lot of amazing things to get our attention. So the more you respond to your inner wisdom, really the more plastic your brain becomes. And through neuroplasticity, your brain will reorganize itself, which is a really amazing thing. So the more that you're aware of your intuition, the more that you will notice it. So it becomes this beautiful cycle in that way. And so really, our brain is really resilient. I remember when I was younger being told that at a certain age I could never learn anything else. But it was great to learn that at any age we can really tap into our intuition to use it. So what I'm going to do today is really encourage you when you go home. I can sit up here and I can talk to you for hours, and you can listen to me and you can go home and say, well, that's a great thing, Vanessa. What I'm going to encourage you to do is when you leave, if you haven't picked up one of those sheets, to pick up one of those sheets and to practice. Because you've got to practice if you want to be intuitive. You've got to open yourself up to that inner knowing. Used to be that I often heard it took 21 days to complete a habit. Well, that's not true. On average, it takes 66 days. But I'm going to tell you, if you tell yourself now, this is great, we're only on the 25th day of the year. If you start now, by May, by the end of your semester, you're going to notice a real difference in your ability to access that intuition. And so it's all about not giving up and being very mindful about it. So why do you want to spend all of this time? Well, you're probably going to say, well, why do I want to spend, maybe devote 15 or 20 minutes at least for the next 66 days? Because I really believe that intuition, whether we're conscious of it or not, is a guiding force in our life. So we can either make those good decisions, like I could have gone home instead of driving and had the accident. We can either make those decisions, listen to our intuition and say, I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to go home. Or we cannot. It's one way or another. So intuition can really guide us, and it's really helping you make better decisions in your life. How many of you have ever met someone in your life that you knew was going to be an important person? Okay, how many of you have ever met someone and you wanted to run out the door? How many of you ran out the door? You were listening to your intuition if you ran out the door, which is excellent. Because a lot of times what happens is we tell ourselves, that person is perfect. It's me. There's something going on with me. With our intuition, what happens is we begin to say, okay, what was it about that person? And sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with the person. Sometimes it has more to do about something that they are telling us that we haven't quite worked through. When I moved to Louisville, there was a man, I was doing some volunteer work, and he really, really bothered me. And I didn't know why, because he was a really nice guy. He was great to work with, until I saw his profile. And he reminded me of my ex-husband. And so for me, it was my intuition reminding me of that. And so I was able to do some other work involving my ex-husband and let it go. And I thought it was funny that I was picking that up in him, and it had nothing to do with him. It was my intuition telling me something very different. So let's start and talk about the 4 aspects of our being. Tony Schwartz and Christine Fora have done some organizational work, and they've come up with what they've called the 4 core needs in organizations. And what they said is that if these 4 core needs are met with individuals, then there's an increase in productivity. And so I kind of laughed because I had always been calling these the 4 aspects of our being. And I believe that if you have these 4 core needs and you really meet them, if you are balancing your 4 aspects of your being, you're more productive, you're able to hear your intuition. So if we look at, the body is all about renewal through self-awareness. And so how are you being mindful? What are you doing in that aspect? The heart is all about emotional awareness. How emotionally intelligent are you? How aware are you of your emotions? Do they lead you? Or do they guide you? Or do they assist you? The mind is about intellect and focus. And what I call the spark is really about purpose and passion. And when we listen to our intuitive presence, it's that spark that we really ignites and we move on. So let's talk a little bit about the body. We look at renewal through self-awareness. How many of you feel like you're really aware of your bodies? When you're really aware of your body, you know exactly what's going on. Our intuition gives us a lot of information with our bodies. Again, when you walk into a room, you can tell your body reacts. Maybe you're feeling a little depressed. Maybe you're feeling really joyous because somebody in there is really happy. So if we pay attention to the reactions that are going on in our bodies, that helps us with our intuition. With our bodies speak to us, they speak to us physically, mentally, and emotionally. They can tell us if we're suffering from burnout, which is now called compassion fatigue. And they also, but what we have to do, or what's important to do with our body, is to really engage in mindfulness activities. And if you look at these, hopefully you can see these. There are many, many different ones. We don't have to practice yoga, although it would be great because it's happening beginning next week. You don't have to do Tai Chi. That would be great. That's happening next week too. But you can do things like walking meditation, or you can just engage in deep listening. You can work and volunteer. You can art. You can create artwork. You can journal. You can visualize meditation. Just being in silence or centering. So if you can find what I call anchor points throughout the day to engage in a contemplative practice, that will help you also be able to pick up your inner wisdom. So what I would encourage you to do is in the morning is give yourself 10 or 15 minutes to engage in some kind of practice. Midday, maybe about 5 minutes to engage in practice, and then in the evening, engage another 10 or 15 minutes in practice. And what you're going to do is create those anchor points so that you notice your intuition throughout the day. So for example, what you could do is for 10 or 15 minutes, you could either meditate, or you could do Tai Chi or yoga. You could journal. And then maybe you only have 5 minutes to focus on your breathing or go for a quick walk up and down the steps. That is a contemplative practice. And then in the evening, again, maybe a walk or journaling or meditating, but it doesn't have to be that long. All you need is a half an hour every day, and that will increase your awareness as well. So really, when we're in the moment, what you're going to need, what you're going to discover is there are times for you to practice. There's that little voice of intuition is going to say, you're not accomplishing anything right now anyway, get up and take a walk. And that's what's important as well. There are also, I would encourage you, how many of you use apps on your phone to bring you into the moment? Is to encourage to use those apps to bring yourself into the moment. And when you're in the moment, ask yourself, what am I missing? What is my internal monologue saying to me? Is there a song that keeps running through my mind? And usually, has anybody ever had a song running through their mind? Have you ever looked up the lyrics? Did it have a meaning for you after you looked up the lyrics? And that's listening to your intuition as well. So one of the things that you can do is to really do what's called I told you about the anchor points during the day, but I'm going to talk to you about anchoring into the moment, and I'm going to have you practice anchoring into the moment as well. This is an activity, this is a practice that you could do. I usually recommend that you do it in the morning. It takes about 5 to 7 minutes once you've got it down pat. What I'm going to ask you to do is again to close your eyes. And if you don't want to close your eyes, you can just look at this. I would like to ask you to focus on your breathing. Don't try to shift your breath, just focus on your breathing. Just notice your breath. And I'm going to ask you to envision a golden light surrounding you. Inhale this light through your crown and just let it flow through your body. It's going to come down through your head, down your neck. It's going to branch out and flow through both of your arms. Through your palms and out the fingertips. I'm going to ask you to focus back on your neck. See that gold light, gold energy that's pulling. Allow it to flow down your chest. Continuing down your torso. Goes into your pelvic area. And it'll branch out again. It's going to go down either leg. Go down your thighs, past your knees, through your lower legs. Down, down, down. It's going to go into your feet and out the soles of your feet. So let your energy be drawn into the earth. And what you might imagine is now there are gold roots coming out of you. And they're rooting deeply in the earth. They're connecting you into this moment, into the here and now. And just as you breathe, feel your connection to the earth. Now what I'm going to invite you to do is to begin to inhale that energy back up your body, leaving those golden roots in the earth. And as you bring that up, feel that earth energy even mingling with yours, so you're really grounded in the moment. So it's going to enter your feet, move up your legs. Come up through your torso. All the way up your chest. Through your neck. It's going to go up through your head. Out your crown. And see this energy going all the way up to the source. And notice how you're connected to both the ground and to the sky. Feel how that's anchoring you into the moment. I'm going to ask you to be an objective observer, where you just notice without judgment, without trying to figure out what's going on, just notice. Ask yourself what you're seeing. Even if your eyes are closed, are you seeing something? Maybe you're seeing a color, an image. Just notice. And I know we're hearing music, but ask yourself, are you hearing something beyond the music? As you breathe, I want you to really feel your body and notice what it feels like. Now, if you want to notice, what does your mouth taste like? Is there anything from your sense of taste that your intuitive wisdom is telling you? And finally, as you breathe, is there something that your sense of smell is telling you? Now at this point, you're just gathering information. You're just listening to what your intuition is saying to you on all 5 of your senses. So I'm going to ask you just to come back into the room. Just take a breath and release And as you open your eyes, just kind of take a check-in of how your body feels, how connected you feel. Now what I'm going to ask you to do is, everyone was given a piece of paper. I want you just to jot down anything that you think was important of what you got during that anchoring. So it might be a color, you might have seen an animal, you might have heard something. If you don't necessarily know what it means, that's okay, just jot it down. What I'm going to encourage you to do is to get into a space like we did coming in, where I had you focusing on your breath. When you leave here and you have time, maybe this evening, take about 15 minutes just focusing on your breath, being in the moment. And what I found is really helpful is I just begin to spontaneously write about something. So I will give you an example. If I got something like the color orange, I would write down everything I think about that orange, everything that, I think about citrus, and citrus is tangy, or I think about orange is all about creation. And so you just think about everything that you think, everything that you have to, everything that orange means to you. And as you write, trust me, try this. As you write, you'll begin to understand what the message was in what you were given, and what I call an intuitive cue. Now, one of the things that I had you do was what I call full body listening at the very end, where you really consciously and intentionally ask yourself, using all 5 of your senses, what it is. Those are our 5 primary senses. Karen D. Olson, who has done some educational theory work, says that we really have 19 senses. So, if you're the type of person that knows when the weather is going to change, you're using your barometric sense. Pheromone-nasal is the sensing of pheromones. And so that's what, if you find somebody that you really know is going to be your best friend, you're probably using that sense as well. So when we really use our intuitive sense, we're not just using one sense, we're using at least 19 other senses. And so right now what I've discovered is that these 14 here are all nestled in the original ones. I will ask you, how many of you have ever been out driving and you've seen, and it's a hot day, the vapor comes off, you're seeing infrared. So it's those things, is that just to know that when you're really intuitive, when you begin to see things, you're not crazy. When you begin to sense things, you're using these nestled senses at that point as well. So with full body listening, what we do is we listen with all of our senses. There was a study done in the 1960s that said that only 7% of what we actually use to process a conversation is the words. The other 93% is inflection and body language. And so if we allow it, if we're in the moment with our intuition, then we're not reacting because somebody said hello to you and you get really upset about it, or you hear something. We're not reacting to what people say. We're beginning to really pay attention to what about that other person impacted me. And so that's why if you just focus on the first 5 senses and know that these are nestled in for the next month, just to begin to see how am I actually getting information from each of those senses. So if we're not mindful to how we are processing information, then we begin to react. And so what we do is we begin to live our life filled with distraction and reacting to distractions instead of responding with our intuition. And so if you can practice the activity that we just did, commit to practicing it for 7 days and see if it doesn't make a difference to how you go into your life. So what we're going to realize is if something's wrong, if you're feeling a little bit off, it's to really sit and recognize that in yourself. And also, with your intuitive sense, I'm going to ask you to get comfortable with being a little silent. Not always reacting out of where you are. It's the power of mindfulness. The more we engage in mindful practices, we make our brain more plastic. And so we're better able to tell when something is out of alignment because we're going to get all of these cues. Instead of our mind just saying that there's something wrong, if you really listen to your body, you're going to know what it is that's wrong, what it is that's out of alignment. And so how can we really begin to name what's going on and what's surfacing in your body? Sometimes we don't have time to do what I just led you through, which is about a 10-minute process. So what I'm going to ask you to do next is just, again, to get quiet and to focus on your breathing. And maybe you're aware of that chord that we created the last time, but I just want you to ask yourself, what is my body telling me? And to recognize that our physical body has a lot of information. It's impacted by our emotions. So to key into your body and say, what is it telling me right now? To ask yourself what thoughts are running through my mind that are being impacted, or that are impacting my physical body, and what emotions are surfacing. It's just to notice without judging, or saying to yourself, gosh, that's got to be really important, I need to hold on to that. So it's being non-attached. And if you notice something, just be mindful again, jot it down, you can come back to it later. When you are actually identifying and deciphering and then responding to your intuition, the 4 noms are very important. And the 4 noms are not negative. They mean that you don't, it's not that you don't do things, it's that you're an objective observer. You're just watching your own life happen. Has anyone practiced that before? Some of you have. If you can just practice watching it like it's not you, you're taking a step outside your life. So part of that is you're non-attached. And that basically what that means is you don't cling to something, but you don't push it away either. You just are with it. So you might say, okay, I've got this image, I think it's important, and I've really got to know what it is. No, you take a step back and say, I think my intuition is telling me something. I'm going to quietly listen until I understand better. And to know that even if you don't understand it right now, your intuition is pretty amazing. It will come back and continue to tell you the same thing until you get it. The other thing is non-judgment. So it's to not judge. This is what I will say: it's to not judge your ability to get your intuition. It's to really accept that you are very intuitive and to rest in that. Non-defensiveness is, how many of you, sometimes we say, I can't get this right, but if that person would just stop talking, I'd hear my intuition. So it's to realize we're not going to defend either. We're just going to sit with our intuition and let it rise. And then we're going to be really careful about nonviolence. So this means that we're not going to tell ourselves, if you look at it, our intuition actually exists on a continuum. And so even if you start right here at maybe 10, is to know that you're going to continue to get better at picking up your intuition as you go along. So it's not to be violent about, well gosh, Karen's at a 20 and I'm only at a 15. I wish that I would be more. It's to really begin to realize that we are what we are, and we don't have to be self-deprecating about where we all are on the scale. The idea is the more we practice, the more intuitive that we will become. I'm at 12:45. I'm at 12:45. Okay. Okay, let's talk about the second aspect, which is the heart or emotional awareness. This is really using emotional intelligence to discover how emotions either help or hinder us. And so this takes what I call a lot of reflection. And by reflection I mean is that we really get into our hearts instead of our heads. In Western culture, we like to be in our heads. We like to be logical and figure things out. But the great thing about being in our heart is we can just rest with it and name how we are and what we're feeling. And in that way, it really helps us to begin identifying, deciphering, and responding to what our intuitive wisdom is really sharing. Jill Bolte Taylor has done a study on the actual lifespan of an emotion. So I'm going to ask you, does anybody know what the lifespan of an emotion is, or would anybody like to guess? Just yell it out.
I don't know, my lifetime.
Her lifetime, okay. It can be your lifetime. There's no right or wrong. There's a right answer, but it's really, I always like to see what people think. Does anybody have any idea? Okay, the lifespan of an emotion is actually a bell curve. The average time that an emotion takes to move from the nervous system and the body is 90 seconds. Not very long, huh? So what happens? We hold on to the emotion, and instead of it lasting 90 seconds, it lasts 99 minutes and 9 days and 90 years. It goes on and on again. So when we're not aware of our emotions, they run rampant. And emotions are probably the greatest barrier to our ability to gain our intuitive knowledge. And that's why when I talked about the 4 nones, it's so important to step back and to be that objective observer. Because if you can say to yourself, I am really angry right now, what is that anger telling me? And really discovering that. Or even say, what is that anger hiding on the other side? I found a lot of times that when I'm really, really anxious, is that if I can do that anchoring into awareness with my breath, just very briefly, I can find out what my intuition is trying to say to me that my anxiety is trying to hide from me. And so when we decrease our emotional intelligence, we're really unable to hear our intuitive sense, and we become emotionally hijacked. And that really basically what it does is that it cuts off the pathway to our intuitive knowing. And we can resolve this by being in neutral. If you practice, it's the 4 nones are non-attachment, non-judgment, non-defensive, and non-violent. Okay. I'm going to take you through an activity that if you practice nothing, I want you to practice this one. This one is called moving into neutral. And the reason it's so important is that if you're finding yourself being hijacked emotionally, if you move into neutral, you can almost take what I said, it's taking the grappling hooks out of the emotion. Because you're not going to have, it's almost like you're no longer going to be solid if you look at it in this way. You can either be water or vapor, so there's nothing for the grappling hooks to hold on to. So again, I'm going to have you focus on your breathing. And I just want you to do a check-in on how is your body feeling? I want you to bring a memory up that is something that is very upsetting to you. And as you breathe, I want you to notice where you're feeling that in your body. Now what I'm going to have you do is to wrap that emotion up, almost in a spitball. And then I want you, as you take a big, deep breath, and then I want you to exhale that emotion out. You can almost imagine I put some fly paper up here so that the spitballs are all going onto the fly paper. Okay, now I want you to return to your breathing. And I want you to think of something that just makes you happy. Now, here's that feeling in your body. Feel that. And notice what it feels like. Now what I'm going to ask you to do, again, is to roll that feeling up in a spitball. Take a big deep breath and just blow it out of your body. Now I want you to think of something that you really could care less about one way or another. For example, mine is the Detroit football team. I don't even know what the name of the team is. So it's just something that you have no thoughts about one way or the other. And I'd like for you just to hold that in your mind. Pay attention to where you're feeling that in your body. And if you're not feeling it in your body, if it's more of just a sense, pay attention to that. What does that feel like? What does that look like or sound like? Just pay attention to that. Now I'd like to have you focus just on your breath and come back into the room and open your eyes. I'm going to have you hold neutral. Some of you might have felt it in a physical location. Others of you, it might just have been a way that your entire body felt. But the important thing is, whenever you hold neutral, you're able to be an objective observer. You're able to say to yourself, don't go there, don't react out of this, and really listen to what your intuition is saying. And your intuition is going to come in louder if you're in neutral. And so that's the thing, if you can continue to practice that, and to let me know how that's going as well. So a keystone of emotional intelligence, and the higher emotional intelligence you have, I believe, the greater your intuitive sense becomes, is really to know yourself. It's an awareness of your own feelings as they occur, and it's even to tell yourself, if I can practice being in neutral for 90 seconds, then the chances of that emotion only lasting 90 seconds instead of 9 minutes or longer is going to be higher. Is that what you do is that emotion goes away so you can really see what the intuition is beyond it. With emotional intelligence, you're really aware of your meta mood. So it's an awareness of your own emotions. And pay attention to them but not reacting out of them. When we increase our emotional intelligence, we also increase our ability to have better impulse control. And Daniel Goleman says that that's really the base of our will and character. Is to ask yourself, what is that emotion saying to me, or what is that emotion hiding from me? And so when we really identify the emotion, and identify if it is if it's an intuitive nudge, because sometimes we have high emotions like fear, they're saying get away from that situation, and that's where the anger, that's where our intuition is being used by the high emotion. But if we're not in neutral, we don't know what that is. Other times, the emotion is a distraction. It's masking our intuition. And sometimes, if you let anger go on for longer than 90 seconds, it's usually masking something that we really need to hear. It's also to realize that sometimes our response is immediate, but if you remember what I did when I had you jot down things, sometimes you're going to get an intuitive nudge that you have no clue what to do with. You don't know what it means, but you know that it is your intuitive sense speaking to you. So what I usually do is I usually have a small notebook that I'll jot things down. And it's funny because sometimes I'll be talking with someone and that person will say something to me and it jogs my memory. I know exactly what that intuitive nudge was saying to me. So that's why it's important to be in awareness, because we're just not going to discover it. We're just not separate. We're part of a greater community, and that's what happens with our intuitive presence. Our sense is really to begin to listen to that. And then our emotional intelligence, the higher it is, it increases our ability to find the right way to respond to our intuition. Because what emotional intelligence really does, it helps us motivate ourselves. So maybe it's going to motivate you to really begin to listen to your intuitive sense. It helps you persist in the face of frustration. So if you're really not sure what your intuition is saying to you, instead of getting frustrated, you're going to be able to really sit down and say, it's going to come to me. It controls your impulses. So sometimes what we think is an intuitive nudge might be a distraction. Like when I told you the story of the man that I couldn't figure out why he made me so uneasy. That was a distraction, the uneasiness. It also helps us regulate our moods so we're better able to hear that internal voice. And it really keeps our distress level low so that we can begin to hear. And it gives us more empathy, and I think empathy is very important to intuitive wisdom as well. One of the things that I'm going to recommend is, and I'll stay if people have questions, is that if you can grab one of the practice sheets, because I was not joking. I will tell you a story that I took a class on intuitive awareness. And after the weekend program, the woman said to us, well, you can come back next weekend. And so this little voice inside of me said, if you come back next weekend, you're going to do what you have done all along. You're going, how many of you have read a book and you get to the end of the chapter and there are all those questions and you think, I'm going to get to the end of the book and go back and do the questions? That's the kind of person that I was, and I said to myself, no, this time what you're going to do is I learned to do something that was called a therapeutic body scan, where I just would scan another person and pick up intuitively anything that I could pick up. And I said, I'm going to do at least 60 of those before I go back to the next class. I wound up over anybody and everybody that would let me do it, they would just come in and I would do these readings. And so I wound up doing 90 of them over 6 months. And I really believe that it was telling myself that, listening to my intuition that said to me, don't go back. You need to practice, really helped me to begin to really be able to listen to my intuition. And so I would really encourage you over the next month is to spend time paying attention. If you can get a small book that you can carry with you just to jot things down to let yourself know that you really are intuitive, do that as well. So questions from anyone?
So, at times when I've had my sort of intuitive voice speaking to me, regarding another person, I have to check myself on socialization stuff that leads us to think things about certain kinds of people versus what you're intuitively getting. So bias, for instance.
Right.
So how do you sort of sort through bias in your intuitive context?
If I'm not sure, if I think that it's bias and it's not intuition, what I always do is I make a note of it, because I say intuitive awareness, when you pick up something about someone and you're not sure, isn't a permission not to be nice to the person. So I hold it in the back of my mind and reserve judgment and wait and see how it plays out. And then I see if it was a distraction, which is a bias, if it was actually something true. Thank you, Karen. I know I kept you guys later. Well, thank you.
I'm running into roadblocks.
So I would say I'd be very aware of what's going on inside that person.
But I know it's guiding once I can't explain
Yeah, but you know what I mean? If you just say you're, if you just say yourself, he's negating my intuition, this is wrong.
Yeah, I know he wants to distract me, and it's sort of,
We're about ready to kick off.
but I know to give well, and take skill, like his feeling for it. And it's like, and more after the day, it's like, you're
So it's use your intuition to feel comfortable about what you think. And it's not about feelings about your growing stronger in your intuition. Does that make sense?
That's pretty scary, but.
No, it is scary because what you have to do is trust that you're right. And accept that there are times when you won't be right. It is scary.
Yeah,
Trust me,
that
it's
is
very
scary.
scary.
That is very scary, yeah. Okay. All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you, this is wonderful.
You too.
And the root of my question was, I have learned over years to trust that intuitive sense, and I don't know what feeds it, but I don't ever want it to be that I've looked at somebody and made a biased decision.
No, and you know what I always tell Karen, what I tell people is that it doesn't give you the right to be mean to somebody, but it gives you the right to say, there's something going on here. I mean, that's the way I look
My
at it.
lesson to trust it was, my second son was maybe four, I think 4 or 5. And there was a guy who was coming, he was driving through the neighborhood, and our neighborhood is, you know what cars belong and what cars don't in our Texas, because it was an old neighborhood and everybody was looking after everybody else. But there was a guy who came through, he had a gray van, he was looking at a house that was for sale by an owner across the street. And my husband, we are, never met a stranger, that's our whole family. So my husband went over, hey, how you doing, blah, 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 blah. And he's sitting out there talking to him for a while. And so when he came in, I said, I can't even tell you why I'm about to say what I'm thinking, because this is so not like the way we normally do. Do not invite that man in for a beer. Because that's normally what we do. We go, come in and have more beer. We have more beers on our patio with strangers that, just right for them. And he said, that's just, us. I don't know what it is. But do not invite him over. So then that guy came back to the house again. And he was talking, he knocked on the door, Craig, when I was talking, and I said, I'll have him on the patio. I said, no, I don't want him anywhere near us. I just can't tell you, but I can tell you it is so strong in me. No, not this person. Right. It wasn't a week later, they caught him in the park, in that same van, trying to rape a 10-year-old boy. And
So
I was just going, after that, I'm like, I'm listening to that.
No, exactly. I mean, that's what you have to listen to. So it does. So you won't leave him in just words.
And the second time I said, what is it about it? Is it, is it his eyebrows? Is it scar? Does he look? No. And it wasn't anything. It just, I called it angel whispers.
Would you work with you about this? Because they have energy vibration. Because I did that once, but I also because I
forgot my whole.
Oh no, because
you can be diagnostic too.
Because you know what? I wish that you were more. I wish you had more time because you'd be really cool to hang out with.
That's the same thing I feel about them. Like, oh my God, there's so much I want to talk to her about. There's so much I want to explore. Because I do believe. And I was looking at that in my last one. I was looking at the list of our other senses. I'm like, of course, it's so logical that the sense of temperature, the sense of magnetics, and yeah, people that can tell the weather, those are senses.
People can tell the direction. Yeah, I mean,
I can tell the direction.
So once you know that, then you know that's your intuition because it's basically everything that's unconscious.
I like that. I heard people participating. So I'm like, hey, good. Yeah, so they're good. And it comes people that have to leave. And then the few trying to say,
Well, I think that's what I learned. Never to take anything personal.
Yeah.
No, actually. So it's good. And I think some people,
well, sometimes those people come back because once they're advanced, they're really, it's like bluebirds, with the balls,
That's what I'm saying, it's really good.